there guys, this is me, Mr. Malorian, and this will be another Warmachine 101. This is where I take your questions that you post up here on the Mr. Malorian Facebook page, and I answer them. So here we go. We have actually a good number of them today, and covering quite a few different topics. So let's just get right into it, because especially the first one's a little bit of a doozy. So the first one here comes from Eric Prohaska, and he says, could you perhaps do some Skorne Tactica? Well, you might notice I don't talk a lot about Skorne, and that's mainly because I don't play them, and they're not very popular around here. So I'm not really the best one to give Skorne Tactica, so what I thought I'd do seeing this one is that I'm going to say, okay, as an outsider, as a Signar Merc player, I'm going to go and quickly look at some choices in Skorne and make a list, and hopefully somebody out there can try it and see if it's any good. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and pick a caster. Now I like casters that do swarmy type things, so I'm just going to find a Skorne caster that really likes the swarm. So I've heard some good things about Makita. I think she gets to bring things back. For one turn, Makita saves the bodies of her fallen troops for them to return on her next maintenance phase. She brings back troopers, leaders, and grunts from living faction units. They are unable to move, but can make attacks on the turn they return to play. So you pretty much just bring them back like into base to base, and then, yay, we can't move, but hiya. If you lose a full unit, you don't get to bring any of them back. Alright, so it's kind of like the whole Epic Morvana thing, except it doesn't really hurt you. So, not really so bad there. So, we're going to make a Makita list really quick. Now, before we do, let's see what other spells we have here. We have Carnage, a medium cost spell that gives bonuses to friendly faction models' melee attack rolls. So, definitely want to go with more melee attack stuff. We have Muzzle, we have Savagery. Ooh, that's the one that makes the super long full advance here. That's really good. And then the Defender's Ward. So all these are really good. So let's go now and start making a list with Makita. Now I think in the very beginning here, come on computer, wait, work. I'm just doing this through Forward Commander. And of course this is going to go super slow. Here we go. We'll make it Skorne. And we're going to be adding in Makita 1. I know that she's really good, especially with Savagery on Moloch Karn. So that's probably going to be my battle group there. It's not probably the best just to have one. I probably want to have something else in my battle group. But then again, I kind of want to just kind of like maximize this out. And have as many troops as possible for swarm. Let's just we can come back. We can come back later. So now I'm going to look for any troops I can get 10 for 6. So Carracks, I'll take 2 of those. Swordsmen, I'll take 2 of those. Slingers, I'll take 2 of those. We're at 42 points. I already have 60 models plus battle group. Now, all these guys, Carracks, Swordsmen, and Slingers, are all regular, type of deployment. I'd like to get some advanced deployment, so that would be the where are you? Are they not going to be on here? Oh, that's the problem with using this sometimes. Oh no, Blood Runners, they are. So we're going to take, we can't take 2 units of Blood Runners, so I'll at least take 1 unit to be up there and be scary. I now have 3 points. And I will come back and take a Reptile Hound just to be kind of like another Fury generator in case Moloch Karn goes down. And then I got 1 point. And for 1 point, I could either take a Feral Geist, which I don't see any good need for, a Tinker, or a Bellows Crew. Bellows Crew is going to be the best one there. So there you go. There is a spam list. It is Makita, a Reptile Hound, and Moloch Karn. You have Blood Runners, double Carracks, double Swordsmen, the Swamp Gobbler, Bellows Crew, and double Slingers. And the real thing about this will be jam. And on the time where it comes to you being actually engaged, that's where you're going to pop your feet, bring the guys back in. And really the whole idea behind this is that normally, if you can, just jam them out of the zone and score and win. But you do have that whole thing behind you where you do have Karn, and if you ever need to, Karn can get in there and kill a heavy that's contesting the zone, can get in there and go for the assassination, and so really you're just like throwing these guys forward. You're not even caring. You might be even attacking their death clock as well, and yeah, you just always have that little trick behind your sleeves. So there you go. That's the way that I'd automatically look into a type of list going there with Makita. This is very similar to a way that I'd run Striker 2, saying like, hey, I got Striker 2 and I got Old Rowdy and a bunch of dudes. Go, go, go. Oh, you got something in the zone? No, it's dead. Oh, let me get to your caster? Okay, your caster's dead. So Skorne players, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And hopefully that wasn't horrendous. All right. Next question here comes from Bob Smith, which is very fitting because he asks the Swarm, why I love it so much. Now, I actually made like a rant video or kind of like a more personal video talking about why I love playing the Swarm, and then realized that, maybe it's not what everybody would want, so I never actually posted it. So, I guess you do want to know, so I'll say it here. So, a big part of me getting into the game was me starting with Legion, thinking they looked really cool, and playing really a lot of attrition. I was coming from more of a chess background, from a 40k and fantasy background, and the idea is that whatever I had, I wanted to get my worth from it. If I was putting points into this, I wanted to get those points back. Plus, the whole idea of peace trading from chess and fantasy, saying I'm giving you this because I'm going to be setting you up to take something bigger. That's how I started. However, I started playing against my brother with his Crix, who was the king of attrition, because, hey, I'm going up there with all these raiders, and they're getting in my face, and they're killing me. Oh, actually, no, he actually started with Kador, and I had Iron Flesh freaking Kayazi all over, and I quickly realized it wasn't a simple thing like chess or whatever, where it's just a trading and a peace trading thing. There are a lot of tricks to the game, and if you do not have someone that had these tricks, you couldn't really do much about that. Now, with that, I started trying to do my own tricks. I went into Signar, and I started trying to find the characters, the casters rather, that would have the tricks to counteract these other things, like high defense or whatever have you. I can deal with this. But you still come up to these points where it's like, well, wow, I didn't think about this trick. Okay, I lost. Oh, I didn't know that this thing existed. Okay, I got surprised and I lost. And then you start realizing, well, you know what? What happens if I just kind of like throw guys in your face? In fact, it was actually a game where I was doing a shooty siege list where the attrition was going on and I was feeling pretty good, and then I realized, oh, I don't need to shoot at all. If my guys with guns actually run up to you and block you from getting to my zone and flag, I just kind of win. So that's what I did, and after that, started actually designing lists that swarm forward. And the great thing about these lists is that, one, they're a lot easier to play. You have to be a little bit careful with positioning and all this, but at least for the beginning, there's a lot of activations that depend on each other. It's not this like Rubik's cubes of activations you have to solve. It's just like, well, no, all this runs forward. I have a few very key activations I have to get right, but otherwise it's very straightforward. And so since I have so many models, it's not actually doing that much to my death clock, because it's like it's taking you lots of time. I don't really care about your tricks, because your tricks don't do very much. You know, if you're really fast, you'll just bang into there. If you have high armor, you're still stuck. You know, you really have to have something special that kills lots and lots of infantry to actually do something. So all of a sudden, you know, I wasn't losing because I was being surprised by things, and then I found myself winning by scenario, by death clock, mixed in Kane 2 there, so I was winning by assassination, and it just worked so well. And there's not many other people that play to that style, especially say like in Signar. Sure, you might see that a lot like in Crix or something, but not in Signar. So it was nice also to be a little bit unique. So there you go. That's why the Swarm and why I love it so much. Next one here from Jordan Scott. Now this one is kind of a silly question because it doesn't really need to be answered in this format, but what Jordan asks is, where does Warmachine 101 get posted? And then, just to be clear to all you guys, Every Friday, I post these up on the Mr. Malorian Facebook page. You have pretty much all of Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning to post your questions, and then I, right now like this, read through them, give my answers. Once I finish that, I delete it so that nobody can add any more, and I post it up once the video is made. So if you're ever wondering how you get your questions on this, go to the Mr. Malorian Facebook page, like it, and look for the post there on Friday. And then Jordan Scott says, cool beans. Richard Potter then says, what are some of the tools you have used to keep your meta engaged and growing? And that's something that everyone should be looking to do. If you do not engage and grow the meta, it'll shrink. People will get bored, they'll move on to other things, they'll be like, well, you know, Warmachine's good and all, but man, they're running all this cool stuff over there for Malifaux. Let's go check this out. And so you got to kind of keep that momentum going. Now, some of the tricks I use for that is, first of all, just posting, just talking. You know, I might not have time to be talking on Facebook, but I'll just do a quick post like, hey, what is everybody working on? Or, hey, what's a good list for this? Just something, if you see that the group hasn't been talking for a while, getting that conversation going. So that's a first part there. If you're active, people can go interact with you, right? If you have a group, a Facebook group, that nobody ever posts on, well, what's the use? And so the way to get it going is just to post on it. So there's a very easy one. Past that, something you also can do is, of course, run events. It's not really even hard to run events. A lot of times, if you work together with others, you can get some tables, some terrain, you know, cut out some zones and stuff from cardboard if you need to, and just run an event. You know, having an event saying like, hey, next month we're running a tournament, gets people engaged, gets people talking, and looking forward in playing, right? So that's a big one. Also, some of the things I've done is I run a painting campaign, so that there's like a painting challenge every single year where people are trying to paint 100 points. That keeps people in and going and talking. I do other things like this year, I run this channel to actually keep people engaged and going, Battle Porsche to get things going. I also run, what am I also doing? I was going to have something else on here, now I just lost it in my head. Some of the things I have tried in the past is also just kind of more engagements in terms of trying to actually get people doing dojo on the actual channel. So this is something where a lot of people have some dojo that they like talking about with their group, because you don't want other people to know your dojo, right? What's the point of me coming up with a new tactic if everybody knows it anyway? However, going on there and talking about these things, you know, can really bring up a lot of interesting ideas, and again, just gets everybody talking. Now, I already have to surrender that. I realize as having a YouTube channel, a lot of the stuff that I do and come up with is going to be spoiled before I even get to a tournament. So I have nothing to lose from that. But even if you're a person who's not like that, talk some dojo. If I am playing Signar and I plan to take Haley 2 and Kane 2 to the next tournament, there's nothing stopping me from going on to there and talking some Siege Dojo. It's not going to ruin my chances from next tournament. It might bring up some more models and synergies that I can plan to use later, and just increases my knowledge. But again, you'll have people that are like, oh, I don't want to talk any dojo because then people know what I'm going to do. Well, you don't have to do that, right? Take that, use something else, and then you have this new knowledge that you can apply anytime you want. So it really just is better for everyone. But if nothing else, you have to make that conscious choice just to be a leader in the community and saying, you know what, I have benefited from this community and it's time to give back. I'm going to do something, and then it really just then depends on what your skill sets are and your resources as to what you can actually do. So there you go. Jacob Brunner, he says, how do you fight a swarm? Or let's say, is there a good tactics for fighting infantry heavy lists? Often it's troublesome to really get enough shooting and attacks on the table to beat them. I play Convergence, and it was much more easy as I played Signar. Alright, So how do you fight the swarm? Well, the swarm usually has a few different mechanisms. The easy one, of course, is the fact that was the swarm going to have lots and lots of dudes? Okay, so you need anything that kills dudes is good. However, you can't just win with dudes. They're either going to try and win by assassination, by scenario, or by death clock. So the death clock one is easy. A lot of people will see a swarm and go like, oh my god, their eyes will open up wide. They're starting to say like, I could go here, but then he'll be after me here. I just can't kill enough guys. And so they spend a lot of time trying to assess all the different options, and they just lose lots of time on the clock. And so the way to not lose by death clock is just to get in there and do it. Say like, okay, what do I have? How can I best defend myself? Do it right away. And of course, some of the better ways to do this is just to practice it. If you know somebody in your group that plays a swarm, get practice games against them so that you're not surprised by it, right? It's almost the same thing like as fighting double colossal. First time you see it, you're like, oh my god, what am I going to do? So to get that reaction away and to not lose that time on the clock, you have to play against it. So get a person in your group, play against them, and when it comes to the game, come up with a plan and do it. Don't waste lots of time. Next part there is going for a scenario. If they're going for a scenario, they're needing to get into those zones fast. The whole point of a swarm is lots and lots of guys, and you have to sacrifice quality for quantity. So realize that their guys are going to be kind of crappy, or at least they should be, and so if you can get into those zones, you can stop them. And so a couple parts to stop that then is realizing that going first is massive. You need to get as far forward as possible. And I've heard this silly thing before, like, ooh, I want to go second, so I'll get another 3 inches off the table for deployment. That doesn't mean anything. Being able to run up that first turn is really going to give you a lot more than those 3 inches. Past that, you need to get something into the zone, and something in the zone that's going to stay there. So whether it's a heavy or some medium infantry with shield wall, something has to get into that zone, and you might have to sacrifice some models just to make that happen. Maybe they're high value models like gun mages or something like that, but they will have to run forward to stall that swarm long enough for the heavy or the storm wall or whatever to get into the zone to lock it down. Now, with that scenario as well, they usually will have a couple of other pieces to help them with that scenario. Maybe it's something like the gun mages, which are going to be pushing you back. Maybe it's a feat that's going to be moving you. Something like that, right? TK. Look at their list, figure out what they're using past the swarm that's actually going to be trying to give that scenario power, and then make sure that you either prioritize it to take it out, or 2, set your models up to counteract it. So for example, if you have gun mages that want to shoot yourselves out, set yourself up as a V, or better yet, a diamond, so that they can't push any of the models, right? You can't push the front ones because there's ones outside that are stopping you, and then if you go with the diamond, you can't even attack the edges first because they'll hit the other sides too. So look for those and find ways to best counteract it, right? You might not be able to do it all, but find your best way to counteract it. Also, with the scenario game, realize that you can give up a few points. You know, maybe they'll block you out for a little bit, and while he's doing his best to block you out of the zone, use those turns to kill off as much as possible. At that point where he's maybe 2 points up or 3 points up, now you can actually sacrifice some activations just to trample something into the zone or whatever you need, but using that turn or two for attrition to really reduce the number of models will enable you to actually get a better control on the scenario. And then once you do, again, they went for quantity rather than quality, and you should be able to muscle your way through. The next one is also through assassination. That's something where like my Kane 2 list is, where it's like swarm, 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 and then somewhere's Kane 2 looking for that shot. Realize what that assassination is and always be looking for it. It's actually no different than any other list. If you were playing ever against Kane 2, you'd be like, oh my god, it's Kane 2, I gotta be careful. but oddly enough, when people are facing a swarm, they get so engaged with fighting the swarm that they don't realize that at any point, as me as the Signor player, my swarm can part the seas. Sure, take your free strikes, I don't care. And now Kane 2 has a straight line to your caster, and you're dead. And so don't get lost in that. Realize that you are always in danger, and imagine that their models could disappear at any second, and you have to make sure that your models and your caster is well positioned to stop that assassination. Typically in those lists as well, there will be key solos that need to be there to help to really enable that. So again, like if it's Kane 2, you're looking for things like the Squire, like Reinhold, maybe Madeline Corbeau, and realize that a lot of times it'll be better for you to kill those support models than for killing 4 more guys from the swarm, right? 4 more guys in the swarm, you can kind of kill those guys attrition-wise later, but it's really important that anything that's enabling their key mechanic for winning, that you stop. So there you go. Those are the main ways. And of course, the other part is make sure that you, and you should be doing this anyway, is have your Crix drop. Something that's designed to kill lots of infantry. And as long as you have that, which really is just something that has massed attacks or effects like chain lightning that kill lots of things, you know, as long as you have a list like that and then you keep those 3 win conditions in mind, you should be okay. All right, next one here. And getting back to Convergence, you have, for a while, I always saw Convergence as an easy win because I could just jam you. Then Convergence got a wonderful battle engine that could just spray for days and kill whatever they want. Get that battle engine. Or 2. So there's that. Next one here comes from Lucas Brunner. You guys must be brothers here, Jacob and Lucas. And Lucas asks, if I try to play more alternative or out-of-the-box lists, what advice could you give me? Something like your Buccaneer Mountain, for example. Is it worth to go the you have never seen that way of list if you try to win tournaments? Okay, let's make sure I'm just going to be answering this the correct way. So if you want to be playing an alternative or out-of-the-box list, and your goal is to win tournaments, you have to make sure that whatever mechanic you are bringing up is still going to be dealing with what you are expecting to see in the top tables for your area. That has to really be a big part in your mind. For example, a big problem with my Buccaneer list that I made, the Buccaneer Brigade, is that right now there's a lot of Legion, and a lot of Legion means a lot of Scythians, and they can really just tear apart a lot of Buccaneers very quickly and get through my list. So even though it's a great surprise list and it can do very, very, very well, it is not a good time, given the meta in the area, for me to be using that list. So wherever you start, make sure, just like if you were playing competitively and inside the box, that's how you'd normally be thinking, like, okay, what list am I playing in the face? Make sure that this out-of-the-box alternative list is based to deal with those. Now, the next thing you can be looking at that from the next step there is saying, what is normally not seen? You know, normally when you first open up your war room or your forward commander and you're like, make a list, you usually have your automatics to bring in there, like, oh, I'm going to take Kane 2 or Haley 2 or whatever. Take a step back and say, well, okay, I'm trying to deal with these main lists. What do the other casters have to deal with this? You know, another thing too is that if you play with your cards like this here, go to see what your bottom cards are. Because if you're anything like me, I always put the new stuff, well, it depends. The casters are on top, so usually the casters, when I'm done using with them, I slap them on the top. And so I can go to the bottom of my caster list, and I can see that I don't normally play Nemo 3, I don't normally play Striker 3, and I actually Siege is down here even as well. And the same thing for the infantry, because normally I have this organized as casters, jacks, infantry. I can actually see what units are at the top of my infantry, which would be my Long Gunner UA, Stormblades, probably just because I have 2 cards for that, Trenchers and like the Stormblade Captain. Look for those things that you don't normally play and ask yourself, what can they do to actually be dealing with this situation? And that's how you're going to be getting yourself started outside of the box, especially if you're doing that while focused on what you actually need to do. Now, having something that's a big surprise is actually fairly important. A lot of people that are in those top tables are doing a lot of that, where they're looking to see what are the big lists right now, what do I need to counter? And if you are going to that event with something they have not considered, you're going to catch them off guard. This is something they have not prepared for, and they might make mistakes because they don't know what your stuff does. Plus, as a guy that goes after Death Clock, they're going to stop and be like, okay, like really trying to think things more through each turn, costing them more time. So whichever way you're going for that, mistakes and losing time on your Death Clock, both amazing. Now, another part with that as well, though, to keep in mind is that you yourself aren't used to it. So if you are going to decide to take that out of the box list and try and win a tournament, you have to play that list and know it very well. And that's where things get really tough, because like my Buccaneer Brigade, the more I used it, the more people knew what it was all about, so that by the time the tournament came, a lot of them already knew what it was before it even happened. So what you would need then is try and find like your smaller group. Don't be taking this list to the big game days. Don't be posting your stuff on YouTube so other people can see it. Find your small group, practice it there, and say, guys, this is my secret tech. Do not share this with anyone, but I really want to test it against this, this, and this, and this, because I'm pretty sure this will be awesome. And there's a little bit of trust there, but like I said, the biggest thing you have going for you is that nobody knows what this thing does, and you might as well try and go for that. So otherwise, glad to see people asking these questions, because it is a lot of fun. You know, it's one thing to grab a list off the internet or that good old list you've been using for years, but that pioneering of making new lists is lots of fun, and you'll just see your opponents. Like, people are going to be like, what the hell is that, Mosar? Or whatever, right? Is that strike a 3? And it'll just be a whole new enjoyment to the game. So I'm glad, Lucas, that you're looking at those type of lists. Two more questions here. Next one here comes from Andrew James Eller, and he says, what do you think of using Gobber Chefs in Legion with Grotesques as comfort food as fury management for casters like Abby 2 and Thagrosh 2 using a lot of beasts? I think that the Gobber Chef is amazing. That model, when it comes out, is going to be huge. I expected to see it all over the place. Except for Legion. Because Legion already has some very, very good Fury management. You already have your Shepherds who can manage Fury and heal, and you also have your Forsaken, which can manage your Fury and explode and kill guys. So, although I could see Legion taking it sometimes, they already have some very, very good options. I would be much more expecting to see this stuff in Circle or in Skorne, or I think it could be taken in Skorne. Maybe I'm off there for it taken, but basically in other factions that don't already have the tools that Legion has. So again, you could take it in Legion, and there's nothing wrong with that, but be remembering that your Shepherds are pretty amazing, and Forsaken, even though they're 2 points instead of 1, also very good. So there's for that. And then, like, in particular, he actually says, like, Abby 2 and Thagrosh 2, where you have a lot of beasts. I'm assuming this is not like the Thagrosh 2 Swarm or the Abby 2 Butterfly Swarm. For these ones here, there's nothing that really takes away from that Forsaken or from that Shepherd. So there's almost no reasoning, and in those lists, they don't even like to really have a lot of units, maybe a pot or something like that, but make sure that you're not adding in a unit just for the comfort food. Otherwise, you're really increasing what that points are, right? All of a sudden, we're like, oh, well, the chef's pretty cheap. Not if you're taking Grotesques as well, just to make him actually work. So again, awesome model, Legion already has some really good stuff. Alright, last one here. RJC Junior Collins says, can you talk a little about tips for building 35-point lists? Most web media focuses on 50 points, but my group rarely plays at that level. So 35 is a little bit different, but a little bit the same. So clearly you are going to be having your list, and you could go skew, you could go balance. However, the biggest thing to keep in mind there is just the fact that you have fewer models. So for a skew, you could actually, usually a lot simpler, go for the skew and take advantage of that skew, because whereas in 50 points it might be a little bit easier to add in that armor cracking element or add in that magic element to take on incorporeal. At 35, that might be missing. So the whole tactic of taking a skew and catching people off guard can be a lot bigger of a factor. Another thing though that I think is really big in 35 is the attrition. When you have something that can really get the alpha and attrition, it's a much bigger deal at 35. For example, Kane 2 is a lot better at 35 than he is at 50. First of all, there's fewer things that can actually protect the caster, plus it's a lot more of a bigger deal now if he uses his feet to take out a heavy, right? At 35, you might just be running that one heavy or something, or either way, you're probably running one less heavy than you are at 50, and if Kane 2 feats and takes it away, well, you're in a lot of trouble. Someone like also Butcher 3, someone that can get in there and feat and say like, haha, this stuff's all dead. At 50, it might be like, okay, that's great, you killed all that, now this other heavy's going to come over and kill you. Well, at 35, you just don't have that other heavy. And so getting that jump in and getting that big up on attrition, and same thing with Lilith 2. Lilith 2 you might think would be worse because you have one less Ravagore, but again, taking out those high value targets right away, a much bigger deal. So be very cautious of those. I'd say that those are probably going to be more powerful than going with the skews, but then again, them skews can get you sometimes. So that's kind of maybe just, you didn't ask that, but that's why I think sometimes I like a lot more at 50, because first of all, it seems like one model can't be as dominant in a game. As well, you can be putting in things a lot more so that you have a lot more answers to other skews. So I find it's a little bit more balanced, but there is nothing wrong with 35. If anybody is coming to you saying, oh, 35 is garbage, and it's for babies, or well, no. It is a completely valid standard format, and no shame for you guys playing that, and I hope you guys are having a lot of fun. But like I said, skews and like alpha attrition, very big at 35 points. So there you go, guys. There's all the questions. Thank you so much for all the people who asked them, giving me something to talk about, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.